Okay, so now I see there's a lot of confusion as well, especially when it comes to the tariffs. There's a lot of miscommunication as well. But now the newly announced U.S. tariffs are basically targeted increases on imported goods, such as steel, vehicles, electronics, and agricultural products as well. While Namibia is now directly not really targeted, this shifts obviously now an effect to the global trade dynamics. But now for Namibia, the key implication is this: we must obviously now begin to strengthen our local industries and obviously reduce reliance on these imports.
Now, who set these tariffs and what are the reasons behind their adjustments?
The tariffs are set by the U.S. government, primarily under now the presidential authority and trade representatives, of course. But now their intention is to protect domestic industries and obviously now reduce foreign dependency. Namibia must now take this note. We too must now enact policies that actively support local producers and safeguard our economic sovereignty. So now the tariffs are brought up, and then so let's give an example of when you order something from China. Even if these tariffs are said, no, we give tariffs to China, the person that is actually going to suffer the most is the person that brings these imports into the country. So now we get to understand that when these tariffs are enacted, consumers get to pay more. That's now if this company does not decide to take up now this less profits. So it's actually the Namibian people that actually get to feel the tariffs even more, because they're the ones that have to make use of these imports.
Are these tariffs likely to be short-term political move, or do you see them reshaping global trade permanently?
With the tariffs has come, tariffs has gone. But with now the attitude that Donald Trump has actually come up with is that we look at it as a short-term thing, because there's still negotiations that are on the table. So the U.S. is actually still allowing different countries to come in for negotiations on how basically the trade can be done. Because we get to understand that right now most of the things that the U.S. spends on is actually imports. So what they are trying to do is basically just to centralize or basically localize manufacturers so that they have more manufacturing power inside the U.S. And obviously this now increases employment as well in the U.S.
You mentioned that tariffs are largely targeted at Chinese goods. Now, if Chinese demand for raw materials slow down due to these tariffs, how might this affect employment or revenue in Namibia's mining sectors?
Well, in the context of China, especially when it comes to the mining sector, obviously this can have it can either go south or it can either go north. So it's a matter of understanding exactly where the target is, and obviously getting to determine now. Okay, now that things on raw materials and everything else is being intact, we have to now make sure that we centralize as well now our own local economy, right? So as much as China is really a huge investor in African countries or Namibia at stake, we now have to realize that the more tariffs that we have and the uncertainty of tariffs that are actually playing a huge role right now, we have to make sure that we centralize. Just like I said, we have to now centralize more of local entrepreneurship, obviously, so that at least when China comes in, we can have now incentives that are actually also now for the local, but also we can still make agreements and make arrangements with China so that we now determine whether the tariffs will also have a huge effect on us, especially when it comes to the relationship between China and Namibia per se.
Now, could the current trade tensions deter foreign investment in Namibia, and what strategies might mitigate this risk?
Okay, well, global trade tensions can obviously lead now to reduced demand for key markets, but now to just mitigate or rather to now avoid now all these issues that can be brought up by now, these tariffs, for example, is we obviously have to now prioritize local procurement. We need to start providing financial and technical support to SMEs and cooperatives, obviously, in Namibia, whereby now we also now encourage value chain development in sectors, obviously, like the agriculture, you have the energy and light manufacturing as well. So we get to realize that economic resilience starts with strategic domestic investment and empowering now, obviously, these local enterprises. So we have to now not only that, but we have to now collaborate as well with other African nations. In context now, we have to now start fostering our joint industrial projects with countries, for example, with like the Angola, Zambia, obviously, and obviously now harmonizing trade logistics within SADC. So we have to go through this now through the African continental free trade area.
Yes.
So we have to now base and have to now strengthen our relations now and economies throughout the Africa.
Now that you have mentioned strengthening our relationships throughout Africa, how well positioned is Namibia to take full advantage of the African continental free trade area in light of these global trade shifts?
Well, I mean, looking at Namibia's positioning currently, whether it's just economic-wise or even just trade-wise, we are at a very advantageous position because we have always done trade with these other African countries. So now this gives us now obviously an opportunity as African nations to obviously now work even more together, because we get to realize that the whole thing of America deciding what African countries do, and obviously now giving us these tariffs whenever they like, whenever they want, and it has obviously an effect on our economies, obviously. So now, us being able to work with other African countries basically just now enlarges our economies, and it enlarges also now our industries as well. And then obviously, as soon as we have industries that are thriving, employment obviously is taken care of, and obviously now the whole thing of countries being able to now help each other, especially in Africa, is what we have always wanted. And I feel like it's a great opportunity for us to take this now with full course.
You are very right with that. Now, lastly, how important is it for Namibia to invest in trade intelligence and economic diplomacy to stay ahead of global changes?
Right. So now with Namibia, we have to position ourselves, obviously, when it comes to skills, when it comes to the knowledge as well, because as much as we are now getting into these different industries, especially when related to other African countries, we have to make sure that we go into these industries well equipped, whether it's policies wise, whether it's also now knowledge wise. So obviously, getting to now strengthen or obviously improve now obviously just our education system on its own enables us to obviously get into these industries with well knowledgeable expertise as well. And thereafter, the moment we get into these industries, knowing exactly what we can do and being able to localize everything else, I feel like gives us a great opportunity to actually run this thing on our own, which is at the end of the day, it's what we need at the end of the day, because we cannot be relying always on these imports and then obviously some of the exports also. But we have to make sure now, if we are now relying on the exports, we have to make sure that most of these products, we have to do them in the country. Processing also has to be done in the country as well, instead of just mining is done and then processing is done outside of the country. So we get a very small share of the profit that we're actually supposed to get from these commodities and investments. I wanted to elaborate exactly, especially when it comes to these tariffs. People think that, for example, Namibia is now given these tariffs, that you have to realize that when you put now tariffs onto the US, for example, because they say it's reciprocal. When you now put tariffs onto the US, you have to realize that the price that you get to buy things from the United States become more expensive. So obviously, this has short-term wise, right now as we see, it has an effect already, because we can see that the markets have been collapsing. But right now they are actually starting to pick up. So when it comes to the financial terms of it, I feel like it's a great opportunity for to look at this and then do research on it and then actually make money out of it at the end of the day. Use the opportunity. That's all I can say.